Hello there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy stuff we enjoy. This is another one of our Just Jim episodes, so you've just got me coming to you today. Zach is taking this weekend off, but he'll be back with us for our next Wheel of Time episode soon. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend wherever you are, or weekday. I mean, you can be watching or listening to this anytime, but for me, it's a Sunday afternoon. It's pleasant. The Super Bowl is on, and I don't happen to care this year. My Minnesota Vikings are not in it, as usual. So, gave me another opportunity to sit down and do a recording with you today. I'm also enjoying some beverage. I've done a little wine tasting this weekend with my wife. It was very pleasant. Now I'm home drinking more of that wine we partook of. Of course, I just keep it stocked, so didn't buy this fresh. It was already sitting in my wine fridge. So I am drinking something simply called Farmhands Red from Pomeroy Cellars up in Yakult, Washington. Nice, tasty red table wine. And I will enjoy that through our episode. Speaking of enjoying the episode, if you do enjoy what you find here today, I encourage you to like this episode, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss other content we have on here. Be sure to look around at everything that's out here now. I mean, this is episode 176. So we've been doing this a little while now. You'll find a lot of things Zach and I have done together, a number of things I've done by myself, a few things scattered here and there that are just Zach. We're working on bringing him along there. But the content is highly varied, and I think there's a little for just about any type of science fiction or fantasy fan to be found on our site. So we hope you'll enjoy it and come tell us about it. Every episode, there's a chance to, of course, put something in the comments, but then we share in those show notes our Discord invitation. Come join us on our Discord server and all the places in social media you can connect with us. Our email address, because we actually still use that, and our Patreon page. If you hang out long enough and find you really like what we do and want to keep it coming, become a supporter. And for as little as $1 a month, you can become part of the Fantasy for the Ages family by supporting us on Patreon. Why am I here today? What specifically are we talking about? Well, as the title suggested, I'm talking about rereads today. There are some books that just deserve to be reread. Honestly, many book series you can't fully appreciate the first time through. They're too complex, too much depth to them. They benefit heavily from a reread. Well, I have over 1,000 books sitting on my TBR. Actually, I think over 1,100 at this moment. All of these things being stuff I'd like to read someday. Of course, I keep adding to the list, and much faster than I remove books. So that is certainly something of a problem. There's a good chance things already on my TBR will never see the light of day for me to read. So, rereading? I mean, it's got to be next level value for me to say, you poor little books still waiting. Wait a little longer. I want to go back to an old favorite, something I've already enjoyed and need to savor some more. So it's weighty. I don't just casually do a reread, but there are some things that in my moments of weakness or in my fond, nostalgic recollections that I really say to myself, I'd like to reread that. And who knows? Maybe I'll just say, screw it someday and actually do some of these rereads. The new stuff can wait. So I've put together a list of maybe the most likely suspects, the culprits that are there's the biggest chance they'll break through. And I think I will eventually reread. Thought I'd share those with you today. I'll definitely be interested if some of you have these on your rinse and repeat cycles. You've reread them multiple times and would be emphatically telling me, yes, Jim, what are you waiting for? Just do it. Do it. Let me know. Now, first off, 2 series that I have thought about rereading, but I'm not going to. I'm just not gonna. Almost pains me to put these here, but I'm gonna say it. the Shannara books by Terry Brooks, and the Rift War Cycle by Raymond E. Feist, with one trilogy co-written by Janny Wirtz. I have read the entire series in both these cases, both of them being more than 30 full-length novels long. Decades of my life invested in these two separate series and the books of these authors. I can't do that again. But it's not that I didn't enjoy them. To be honest, I did enjoy these series very much. But when I reflect on them, I'm not sure there's enough there to justify investing all the time it would take to reread them again. Would I enjoy them? Yes. Would there be parts of those series, though, where I'm like, why am I spending my time rereading? Yes. Uh, there's some of those books that are a little repetitive, times that are a little shallow, weaker parts of the series that, as a whole, the first time through was worth every bit, but doesn't compel me to want to reread. Now, that says something for the rest of what I've got on this list, though, because I'm a Shannara fan. I'm a I'm a Rift War Cycle fan, for sure. Recommend these books to any fantasy readers. Not good enough for me to reread them, though. So, what would I reread? Where am I going here, actually? Well, here's the first one. And I've got multiple series here to share with you today. The first one is The Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. This is one of the earliest adult-level fantasy series I read. I read them as a teenager, all 10 books. I know I did not appreciate these books to the level I should have. I was too new to complex, long-form fantasy fiction. I'd read The Wizard of Oz by this time. I had started The Dragon Riders of Pern, just the first few books. But this stuff was next level. There was some robustness to this, some serious world building that had gone on, interweaving different levels of reality and characters that could move between, and fascinating. I think back on it fondly, but I don't honestly remember it as well as I should. I remember liking it, but I also remember times I was just confused, and I think I lacked reading experience to truly get the most out of these. So I'm pretty confident I'd get way more out of the Chronicles of Amber if I read them now. Now, I think they'd be pretty dated at this point, so I also might be a little judgmental of some of what I've read, going, we've gotten better at writing fantasy by now. But I'd never know unless I reread them. So it's a distinct possibility. Another one that I have on this list is Dragonlance. Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman, and of course many other authors who have now contributed to the Dragonlance Chronicles saga. I mean, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of Dragonlance books. I've only read maybe the first 9 or 10 that are out there. I own a few more that are waiting on my shelf that I'd get to. When I think of a reread, I'm really thinking about the first 2 trilogies that came out. The original Chronicles, and then the trilogy that was about the twins. Okay. Those would be worth rereading again. There's some really cool stuff and a heavy dose of nostalgia to go back into those. But there's so much more to Dragonlance that I could read. Honestly, I'd love to read everything that's out there just to immerse myself in the world of Dragonlance, the world of Kryn, all this rich classic fantasy. That would be a big time commitment, and I don't think I'll ever do it. But maybe those first Dragonlance books. That would be fun and not too long of a commitment. From science fiction, I've got on this list Foundation, the whole Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. This was kind of peaked recently when Apple TV came out with Foundation, the series. And I watched season 1. I'm waiting for season 2. they really departed from the books in a number of significant ways, but it also reminded me of how much I don't remember about the books. So I do remember how much I enjoyed them. I plowed through those books. They had been out for quite a while by the time I got around to them. I definitely appreciated the books. This was some good writing, good storylines. But again, long time ago for me, I probably would appreciate them better on a reread. So I might get back to that. Sticking to science fiction, but also kind of merging a little more towards fantasy, would be the Dune saga or the Dune Chronicles or whatever you want to call those Dune books. Core series by Frank Herbert, continued and completed by Brian Herbert, his son, and Kevin J. Anderson, experienced author, stepping in to help. I loved the Dune books. Now, this is not light reading. I know Dune is a series some people DNF. It's just too much. They can't hang on to everything, or they find it developing too slowly and they get stuck and bored and they stop. But I made it all the way through the series. I did not have that problem with it dragging for me. I was eager to find out what's next, what's coming, where are we going. Uh, I loved the prequel books and the eventual sequel books that came out from Frank's son. Thankful for all of that. Again, I see criticism of those not being as good as what Frank wrote. Don't care. Told more of the story. I enjoyed getting more. And so just rereading the whole thing all the way through once, that would be fun. I know I'd value that. I know I'd catch a lot more again. Reread, it's got to be worth it. You got to be able to know you're going to get deeper things out of the books. So I'd get that from Dune. But you can't read those fast. So that would be a commitment. I don't know if I'll ever get to it, but it would be one that's worthy. Another one that comes to mind is The Dragon Riders of Pern. I thought of rereading these for a long time, and okay, well, now I'm doing it actually. So this one doesn't even belong on the list now because it's happening. Now, what triggered a reread of Dragon Riders of Pern? Well, I read the first 16 books when there were only 16 books. Okay. There was nothing else. There's 26 books now in the world of Pern, this Dragon Riders of Pern series. Anne McCaffrey wrote most of them, but she co-wrote some with her son Todd, and then her daughter Gigi also has written a book now. Now, Anne has passed away, but her children can still write more. So potentially there's more Pern books to come. Zach had never read them. I tried to get him to read them once. He didn't really get into them. I guess he wasn't ready yet. But now on his own initiative, he wanted to read them. So on his suggestion, we started up a book club on our Discord to work our way through them. And the whole 26 book set was the goal. So taking about a year and a half, we're moving through them every 2 to 3 weeks, a new book. By December here of 2023, we'll finish the last one. This has been terrific. We're already on book 10. And again, these are all rereads for me so far. I'm definitely getting more out of them. That's, they're reread worthy. So many new connections, so many aha moments, so many things I appreciate better because I know of what's coming. That has been really good. And I look forward to getting to the new ones now and adding those to what I enjoy about Pern. Another one I've got a little bit of nostalgia with is the Guardians of the Flame series by Joel Rosenberg. I so enjoyed these when I first came across them back in college. And it's good context because they're about college students playing D&D who get sucked into a real world of Dungeons and Dragons as characters that they were playing. It's fascinating. It starts off with a bang, and the punches keep coming for quite a while. The author is very creative with where he takes these characters, the growth of these characters, and what he does in the overall story arc. When I read them, there were only 5 books out, and that's all I've read. There are 5 more as I've done research now. The latest one came out in 2003, so it's 20 years old now, but I didn't know there were more. So I would like to reread this series and then catch the rest of the books. Doing a little research on these, there's mixed opinions. I guess some people don't care much for the author for off book reasons. I don't know anything about that. I liked the writing, I enjoyed the story. I would have no problem rereading the Guardians of the Flame series and maybe get the whole thing. Another one on a reread list is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. Of course, I'm still rereading this series. This is one I just have to put on here because I'm gonna keep rereading. It defines the type of series where you must reread it to fully understand what you're getting, and you can reread it multiple times and get even more. There's so much packed into these books, so well tied together, so many things woven into the pattern of this writing that I still enjoy reading them. Right now, I'm with Zach, of course, here on our show, rereading The Fires of Heaven and diving deep as we break down chapter by chapter. And even doing this, man, I have to have read this book at least, what's it got to be? This might be the eighth, ninth, maybe 10th time I've read this book, and I'm still picking up new things. So, Wheel of Time belongs in everyone's reread list. Kind of in the same mold, but not that I've done it nearly as many times, is Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files. I will reread these books. Most of them I've only read twice now. I read them once, and then I did episodes on them. So I reread them to break them down in full summary episodes that you can find here on the YouTube channel and in our audio streams if you're an audio listener. Fantastic books. But as I worked through them for doing episodes on them, I was getting more than I did the first time. And I know if I read them again, I'd get even more. Case in point, I've been listening to book 3, Grave Peril, with Judy, my wife now. And going through it, I'm like, how did I miss that the first time? Oh, that's there the first time. I'm catching things that I'm appreciating better because this is my third time on the book. So that's the kind of series you want to keep reading. I know I will do more rereads of the Dresden Files because the series isn't done. We're only up to book 17, and there's going to be 23, 24, maybe 25 books by the time he's done. I will have reason to go back through in preparing for the new stuff to come. All right, here's another thing that I'm going to enjoy a reread on. I've already reread some of this twice. Okay, I've already reread it once. So I've read some of this twice so far, but I'm starting a third time. I'm just going to be squeezing it in here and there, and that's the Walking Dead comics by Robert Kirkman and various illustrators. I own all of them, and I just reloaded them to my iPad Pro. So I just had that inkling. Like, I want to reread these again. So, yep, I'm just going to start it. I reloaded them just last night because I was prepping for this episode and thinking of what kinds of things would I like to reread. And when I started pondering The Walking Dead, I said, wait, no, I'm just putting them on. I'm going to reread these now because they're good. Very, very good. And very different from the TV show, which recently finished just last year. So I'd like to go back and just do the actual story again. All right, I have 4 more on here. So here's my next one. The Dark Tower series by Stephen King, his fantasy opus that he created, which when he came out with it was so different than anything else he was writing and showed his skill as an author. I read each of these as they came out, publication year, with the exception of book 1, because I bought the first 2 books at the same time. I hadn't caught the first book when it came out, but when book 2 came out, I'm like, oh, wait, what's going on here? And so I picked up this first 2, and then as each of the next ones came out, I picked them up. Now, there's some serious gaps in when they came out, and Stephen King was putting out other books, more of his horror and suspense stuff in between these. So it was really easy to forget things, to not be sure of how does this tie together. I did not go back and reread those early books. I just kind of moved through each book as it came on and sometimes was a little befuddled. and I wasn't going to the internet back in those days trying to look things up. I was just, okay, I'll read it, figure it out. And I know this is a series I did not appreciate to the quality that it brings because I wasn't going deep enough. There was now a later novel that I found has come out, The Wind Through the Keyhole, published in 2012, that I've put on my TBR. It doesn't come after book 7 because book 7 was the end. It was clearly the end of the series. Regardless of what you thought was the ending, we could do a different episode on that at some point. I share your pain. But this book fits between book 4 and book 5 and fills in some extra details that I guess there's some value in. But maybe it would make sense that when I get to that on my TBR, that I just read the whole series again. I know I would get more. I would probably enjoy it. Hopefully, I'd be a little less confused going from book to book to book. I will take it under consideration. Another one is a book series I recommended recently in my zombie apocalypse recommendations episode. There's a lot of zombie apocalypse books I would probably enjoy reading again, but this one I put on the series because it's probably the one that has the best chance I will. And that's the Arisen series by Michael Stephen Fuchs, and some of the books written by Glenn James and some they wrote together. It was perhaps the greatest thrill ride of any zombie apocalypse series I've read. And I've read a lot, and I've enjoyed a lot of them. But these, man, it is so hard to stop reading when you're going through them. Just your pulse is boom, 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 boom. You're so intense, so to what's going to happen next. You're almost out of breath when you finish one of these books. To just go through the whole series again would be awesome. Wouldn't take me too long. Most of the books are not that long. And I've seen there is a new related series coming out now, Arisen Raiders, which is actually set in the midst of the series because the Arisen series ends. There is a clear conclusion. The story is over. And you feel good about it. Yes, it's over. Not, that stunk. No, it's over. Good way. We get it. Yes, well done. But this goes with some other things we know from the core story and tells more that we didn't have time to learn about when it was happening. So I've put it on my TBR, this Raiders series, and when I get to it, might be a good time to reread the Arisen series, and that would be a blast. Okay, 2 left. This one is probably the one I'm least likely to reread of all the ones I put on here. But because I thought it might be fun to reread these multiple times, independently, just in other conversations about fantasy books, I figured I should put it on here. And it's the Xanth series by Piers Anthony. I know, these books get trashed by a lot of people these days because there's a lot that's kind of trashy about these books. It's true. They are not the highest of quality. The way they talk about women and so many subjects, it can be problematic for people. I will acknowledge that. At the same time, they're quirky and fun. They lean into the puns so badly that it's kind of good. There's now 46 books in the Xanth series. I've only read the first 9. I think I just was Xanthed out at that point and moved on to other books. But I have some interesting, fun memories of them. I think I might enjoy, kind of as a guilty pleasure, to go back and see, are they worthwhile? Are they way too below me now? I'm just curious. I might get a third of the way into the first book and go, I don't need a reread of the series. But I'm curious. So it's here. Like I said, it's probably the one I'm least likely to ever do. Let me know your thoughts. If you are a major Xanth stan, encourage me. And if you can't stand Xanth, tell me why and keep me away. I mean, come on. You're gonna see there's no books by Terry Goodkind on here. I've read that whole series that shall not be named now. It's because of fans out here informing me and educating me that I would not reread those now. You know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go look up Terry Goodkind. No, don't look up Terry Goodkind. No, don't give any attention there. Okay, moving on. The final series that is on here for reread is one that will be reread. It's just a matter of when. Of course, this is A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Because good old George is going to finish the series. He's got 2 books to go. He tells us he's nearly done with The Winds of Winter, book 6. And these books have so much in them. And then there's nuanced differences between the books and what HBO did. There's no way I can read book 6 without first doing a reread of the first 5 books. I'll need it. I won't appreciate what's new without having all of that fresh. So a reread is coming, but it's up to Mr. Martin as to when it happens. That's it. That's my reread list. Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what I put out there. So find us on Discord, social media, all those ways, and let us know. In fact, I'll throw the outro here now as the reminder visually, too, of the ways you can connect with us, and all these things are in the show notes, too. What did I completely not put on here that for you is an absolute must reread? Some of those will be series I haven't read the first time yet. I want to hear and see if they belong on my 1,100 book TBR list. They're probably already there. You may have gems I haven't come across yet, and I always want to know what else should I be reading. So tell me what I should reread, tell me what I should read the first time, and tell me what you think I'm out of my mind for wanting to reread. Ultimately, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.